Hello, my name is Meera Bhatt, and I'm a senior at Montgomery High School in New Jersey. Welcome back to the interview series on college and careers, where I talk to established professionals from a wide range of careers to learn and gain a well-rounded understanding about different careers and different pathways to success. Today, I'm so honored and super excited to be speaking with Mrs. Ami Desai, a blogger, influencer, and pioneer for South Asian women in media. She has worked in TV and digital media for over 10 years and developed her love for storytelling through producing and hosting for various outlets like CNN and the OWN network. With her passion for media and dream for more South Asian representation, she majored in communications at UC Berkeley and received her master's from Boston University in broadcast journalism. While serving behind the camera and as a host, Ms. Desai simultaneously built her own beauty brand catering to Hollywood and South Asian brides. She gets her energy and passion from connecting with people on her social media platforms, whether that be through creating engaging content around motherhood, lifestyle, or approachable beauty. I'm so excited to speak with her today. All right, Mrs. Desai, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here today.
So excited to be here.
All right, so I was hoping we could kick this off by you giving us a brief overview of your career journey from, your college days to where you are now with over 145,000 followers on Instagram.
So college, that seems like a long time ago. I graduated college in 2003. So it was a long time ago. But it's amazing to see where things have kind of, if you asked me then if things would be where it is almost 20 years later, I would not at all think that this is where I'd be, which is a good thing, which I think shows that it's very unpredictable. And like what you set out to do in college doesn't necessarily mean that that's the end all be all. And I think more than ever, especially for someone like you that's kind of going through that right now, that like, I think back in the day, I felt very attached to like whatever I was majoring in, like that was it. I also came from a different generation where being South Asian, it was very much traditional, like, vocations like lawyer, doctor, engineer. And so if I wasn't studying to become one of those, then what was I doing with my time? And I didn't want to do any of that. I studied mass communications at Berkeley. And then went on to get my master's in broadcast journalism at Boston University. And in between the two, I interned at UC Berkeley. I remember I was like, I'm going to apply and try and work with a studio or do something in entertainment, because entertainment journalism was really up my alley. It's like what I love to do. I also enjoyed long form journalism. So something more like Nightline, 2020, Dateline, things that were of that nature.
Right.
And I applied to be an intern at E! News, and that I got it, and that was amazing. So I got to come back to LA and do that. And then from there, I ended up working there full time as well, post college.
Okay.
And then went to get my master's because I felt like at that time, if I'm going to do this career, I have to make my Indian parents happy. And how else can I do that by not upsetting them that I'm also going into a career that they don't understand at all,
Right.
And so that's when I decided to go to grad school. And I'm so glad I did, because I feel like that taught me a whole new world of, it just opened up everything, like networking. And I think that's like one big thing that I don't think anybody should ever take for granted. Like networking is so important, as much as it can be just a little bit of like, you might go 10 places to network and you may not meet somebody that is um, connected in a way that you need to be. It's not always about that. It's also just kind of like getting out there, putting yourself out there, sharing your story. I think the more you talk about it, it's almost like a revision of like what your goal is in your career. You start forming that idea of what your kind of your pitches, or your
Right.
objective, your tagline. And so I think that that's really great practice, especially coming out of 2020, which a lot of us got so comfortable with doing things the way we are right now,
Mm-hmm.
virtually, and not really seeing people face to face. There is something to say about like when a lot of times with me, like with what I'm doing now, a lot of times when I'm seeing people in person and I meet them, that is a whole different experience than when they see either my content online or just read a resume, right? It's such a
Mm-hmm.
different connection that
Right.
I think can be really great.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, after grad school, left there. I worked at CNN for a long time, which was great. And then ended up at Inside Edition doing producing over there, which is like a news magazine show, kind of like hard news and light news. got to work a lot of red carpets and really got a really solid foundation of how to produce produce segments, write, edit, all that kind of stuff. And then simultaneously, I also was obsessed with hair and makeup. Like beauty's always been my thing. But again,
Mhm.
going back to, and I hate using my parents as like the scapegoat here, but like they really were like, no, you can't do this. No, no, no. I don't know any respectable Indian girl that is going to do hair and makeup as a career. No. So I
Right.
was like, ah. So at that point, I was like, I'm an adult now and I can do this. And I was getting married. So this was now in 2007. And I
Mhm.
realized when I was getting married, there was nobody there that knew how to do brown skin, like, really, really embrace brown skin. And I'm not talking Latina, I'm not talking Black, I'm not talking Asia, I'm talking like Indian skin, no one knew
Mhm.
the right colors, the undertones. And it would just upset me. I was like, we go to India to like buy our clothing and like we have these lavish celebrations. And yet I'm sitting here with no options for hair and makeup. So I kind of took that into my own hand and I started my own business doing that, which was really great. And at that time, this was before Instagram, so no one could share their work. It was like when people were doing it on Tumblr and blogs
Mm.
and things like that. So I started doing that and it was great. And then I got called back into TV and I produced and hosted a travel show, which again goes back to network. Like when you're in the business, you start building this Rolodex of people that you know. And so someone, I was top of mind for someone. They're like, hey, I heard from someone that you're interested in this and that you have a great on air presence. Would you want to try out for this or audition? Yes, great. Did that. And then that parlayed into another opportunity with Oprah, which was her um, own.com. And I was a digital host for 3 years for her. And then slowly from there, things kind of, are where they are now.
Wow, that's so great to hear. And, it's really inspiring how you did so much to explore your interests early on in your career and then built your personal brand from that. So, really cool to see. And I know this might be a little hard to answer, but what does a typical day or week look like in your life?
Oh gosh. It's interesting. I think it's there's two hats that I wear and I try to balance them both because I chose and I actively chose this which was to work from home. I really wanted to be able to be mom when I need to be mom and then also work from home. And I find that such a privilege to be able to do so. So, especially once COVID hit, it was one of those things I was like, well, I already do this. I work from home and I do everything. So, it really is about being efficient with my time. So, a normal day would look like waking up before the kids do. So, up by, and now my littlest one, who's one, is sleeping through the night and wakes up more like 6:15, 6:30. So, getting up before them and packing lunches, breakfast, all that kind of stuff, and then getting the older two out the door. So when they're off to school is when I will like get a workout in, answer my emails, and start shooting. And so for me, what I mean by shooting is like any content that I have to get done for brand partnerships, or even if it's for my own personal stuff, I
Mhm.
will do that. I have to get it done before like 2 p.m. is my cutoff time for me because
Okay.
post 2 p.m., the kids will then need drop offs, pickups, sports, all that kind of stuff. So I really try and manage it where it's like anywhere from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. is those hours are like I am, head down and just focused on getting things done. And I kind of have a list of everything I need to get done for that day. And if it bleeds into the other day, um, it does, but like that's pretty much my work time. And prior and after, the 2 p.m. is when I'll do like all family stuff. And so that way
Mhm.
I'm really focused. It gives me a good separation, especially for those that work from home, or which I'm sure so many people do now. It
Mhm.
allows me to really separate what I'm doing and like turn off my work brain and turn on my mom brain. And so it's like, okay, I'm here, I'm present, especially as my kids are getting older. I have a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old, and then a 1-year-old. As they're getting older, they're becoming more conscious of what I do. So like if the camera's on and I'm doing something, they get it and they're like, what are you doing? What is this for? This is for work. Um, and so I'm just kind of trying to balance that and be smart about it. But I think more than anything, especially after becoming a parent, it has shown me how efficient you can be with your time, but also how vital it is to really getting things done. Because it's exhausting, but it is
Mhm.
one of those things that I absolutely love to be able to say, I don't have to leave to get work done. And then in case of emergency, I could be at the drop of a dime with my kids if they need me or something like that.
That's
So
right.
really it's just about being efficient and like blocking off those hours in a day to say this is the time I need, and if I'm not going to get it done for whatever reason, then I have to make up for that the next day.
That makes sense. And I think that, like you said, it's applicable to a lot of people now that, we're half home, half back in person. It's
Yeah. It's crazy and it's hard, right? Like how do people, it's a legit question. And I think it's something that messes with your, general state of mind and like being
Mhm.
calm and just um everything. It's like, when does it turn off? It never does, right? Because
Right.
a lot of people are working from home, and it kind of the melding of the two worlds of personal and career come together, and you're like, it's easy to be on your phone and just answer emails on your phone versus your computer. And it's like, you just got to shut it off at times. And I have to remind myself all the time to like, no, don't do that, and a lot of my stuff work related does include my kids. So, I have to find a healthy balance of like, I don't need to be doing this right now, and
Right, right.
I need to kind of be there present and in the moment.
Well, it sounds like a lot, but it sounds like you've got it figured out for the most part. So kind of switching gears again, what do you recommend for kids who might want to go into a non-conventional or non-traditional, maybe more creative profession? And how do you kind of prepare for that?
I think it's a great question. And I think that's one that like there's no right or wrong answer. There's no rhyme or reason. I wish there was like a cookie cutter formula, but there is not
Right.
one. And I really think it has to do with, so let me go back to like, how we were talking about when I went to school and everything, it was more traditional paths. And there was more, I think, traditional careers that people were like, I'm going to do this. So I'm going to go to school for this many years, then get my advanced degree in this and pursue that. I
Hmm.
think now, and for me specifically, I studied journalism, right? So communications and journalism. What I found was really useful was finding a skill set, a craft, or subject matter that you are one, very passionate about, and two, excel in. Like you are
Hmm.
somewhat really good at that. Like it comes naturally to you to talk about it, to do it. And it could be on anything. Let's say it's um let's use me as an example, beauty, right? Like I loved doing hair and makeup and I loved doing it on other people. So if that was something I was really interested in, obviously in school, as far as traditional school, there wasn't a hair and makeup class, right? So
Right.
let's say like you're really great at something or passionate about it. I always say focus on that and see how you can turn that or use some of that skill set in a career that will actually then lead to a paycheck, monetary support, all that kind of stuff, and see how you can actually make that into something that you do day to day, because then
Hmm.
that's golden, right? That's like what everybody's dream is, to be doing work that they don't actually consider work, but that they love.
Right.
I also think it's important to remember that like there's a difference between passion and like what your actual work is, because if you end up, a lot of people end up working so hard and integrating what they do in it, but it ends up becoming just work for them, and so then they end up losing that passion and that drive around it. So I think there is, again, a healthy balance around that.
Right.
um, but as far as journalism goes, I used to always tell people, I'm like, that's great that you're a sci major, or that you're an attorney that's going to actually end up being on air, because what that provides, and I think this is applicable to a lot of people in different fields, is like that person comes with a voice in that specific skill set or in that subject matter. So like, let's say, you were an attorney and you're like, I went to law school, but now I realize I don't want to do that. I actually want to be sharing my wealth of knowledge around legal issues and help people. And so I want to go on air and I want to start doing stuff like that. I always say that's fantastic. That's the leg up that you have on that. You are the expert in that
Hmm.
specific field. Same thing, like what I do is I pitch myself as like, I know hair and makeup, I know beauty, I know wellness, I know kids. That is how I'm pitching myself versus just saying, hey, I'm someone that you can use on air. For what though? What am I using you for? So I think it's about finding the connection of something that you really, really love, and how can I use that creatively and think outside of the box in something like that would actually be a career. But nowadays it's like so many things can be a career, right? Like we're seeing people who are just not even entering teenhood and that are making hundreds and if not millions of dollars on TikTok and social media platforms and stuff like that, which
Right.
I don't know if I would necessarily feel comfortable about that, like especially with my kids, because if you've learned that at such a young age, do you know what to do with that later, right? Like, what if
Right.
TikTok and social media were to end in 5 years? What would you do, right? So I think
Hmm.
there's lots of questions you want to ask yourself. One is what I'm really passionate about, is that something I can create into a career? Two, if I can't necessarily incorporate my passion into my career, is there a way at some point where I can get to my career where I can focus on the passion? And then also, if something that I'm passionate about does turn into a career and it's something that's very lucrative and I can monetize it, is there something that I can go back to after, if all of it goes away? Is there something I can fall back on and say, I have this, right? Because, like, for instance, like the message about, like, the example of the attorney, that person can always go back to law school, right? That is
Right.
still, I think, more of a traditionalist mindset, though, you know what I mean? Which I kind of
Right.
still have a little bit in me, because it's always like, I want to have that security if
Hmm.
this fails. But I think it's about what you're comfortable with and how comfortable you are pushing yourself. But as far as, like, you know, going the non-traditional path, I say, like, don't be afraid to do it, and do not be afraid to start, because I think that is the biggest thing. I have so many people, no matter what age they are, and I would say you get older, the older you get, the more risk averse you become. But I would say, like, if you're passionate about something, like, let's say there's a baker and they're like, oh my God, I want to start selling my cupcakes, but I just haven't refined this recipe, so I don't want to put it out there. It's like, this is the time to do it, because
Right.
there is no better focus group than the people that you interact with day to day, right? Like, I
Hmm.
probably say, hey, Meera, hey, mom, dad, like, come and try these cupcakes. Are these good? I don't know. They're not really my cup of tea, or they're not this. And so that is how you're going to hone your craft and get better, right? So it's not about putting something that's perfect out there. It's about filling a void. And
Hmm.
if it's something you're passionate about, there's got to be more people that are passionate about it. Like, for me, and why I started my social media journey was because I was a mom of two under two. And at this point, the whole mom life and, like, mom everything just wasn't there. The space was becoming more evident, but nobody was capitalizing off of it. You didn't see YouTube channels, and you didn't see things that were actually focused and centered around motherhood. And so
Okay.
I was very much like, I want to do this. And I also wanted to speak to a certain woman too, like, who was like me, maybe grew up more
Hmm.
traditional, but wanted to work from home and also take care of her kids. And I wasn't a doctor, I wasn't a lawyer. So how do I do this? And so I think it's about finding your voice, finding the void that you're filling. Why is it that what you're doing creatively or that you're passionate about would speak to other people? And then you kind of, like, start answering those questions. And it comes as simple as, like, even journaling it, right? Like, asking those questions and answering them, because what you find is you actually find the answers when you talk about them more and you start journaling about it. You're like, oh gosh, this is what I want to do. This is why my passion for this makes sense to connect it as a career.
Right. Right. That really makes sense. So kind of going off of that, is it I feel like social media is definitely a space that's, growing so rapidly, but it's also something that could be like taken away in an instant, possibly. So how do you keep up with that? And what do you think, from your opinion, is the scope of this profession in the future?
That's a great question. That's a great question. And I would say, because it's still relatively new, like, especially talking about creators or digital creators or influencers coming and making money and monetizing off of social media, it's still newer, even
Hmm.
YouTube. Like, it's not something that's been around for decades and decades. It's, like, still under 20 years that people are using this as a platform to make money off of. And so I think that it is definitely something that I don't think is going anywhere, but the streams as to which people are making money off of will, like, I think,
Right.
just like MySpace back in the day, and again, that wasn't something that people were making money off of because they weren't using it to, like, sell products and stuff like that.
Hmm.
In that sense, I feel like it's not going anywhere. I think Instagram, especially Facebook and TikTok, they have replaced what back in the day would have been for, like, our moms watching QVC, or, things like that. You see, and like to know it, reward style, you see people that are using various platforms to influence or sell products. And so I don't think that's going anywhere, but I do think that it's going to change a lot,
Right.
and I have no idea how that's going to change. And that's hard, because you think about how you're making money, and is that going to be the same in 2 years? You have no idea. And so that's what's very interesting about this field though, too. I almost equate it to what I remember like my actor friends talking to me about, it's like at one season, I will get 5 huge gigs and I'll be set for 2 years, of work. And then after that, it's like, wait, am I getting this or am I not? And so I think with that said, it's like working really smart, making your content consistent and things that
Mhm.
people are continuously coming back for, even if trends change, um, even if even if like the needs have changed, you're still irreplaceable. So like it's almost like we still need you to be the person
Mhm.
that's relaying these kind of messages. And why? What makes that something, right? It's that you are engaging, you are connecting to your audience, you are still someone that people want to see and connect with and engage with on a daily basis. And so I think it's like almost making yourself invaluable with the people that you are speaking to, which again is your audience. With that said too, I think it's really important to remember, especially in this space, like how you measure success. Like, are you measuring success based off of the followers? Are you measuring it because it's like, my goal is to get 300,000 followers and I just want it to be like this thing where everybody's like, oh my gosh, so cool,
Mhm.
Or are you trying to use this as, are you measuring in terms of monetary success? Like, are you using this to say, like, look, I could leave my full-time job and this is my full-time job and I make enough money to support my family. And that's amazing. That feels really good. And I'm
Right.
doing that in a way, like I'm parlaying it into different streams of revenue, right? Like I'm no longer just putting myself out there and like sharing looks of the day. I'm now working with brands to produce different things. Like it's all about you thinking outside of the box. Like, how are you not just one? It's multifaceted, right? We're not
Mhm.
just looking at one thing. It's like, how can I use this now? What I have built here? How do I use that to get other things going? And it's all, and that really depends on what you as the creator in this space wants to do, but I think
Right.
at the end of the day, it's got to be something that can transcend like Instagram or Facebook or this. It's like if I were to put myself and my brand outside of the space, would it still be something that can connect to people? And I think that's the ultimate goal is like, how would I be able to do that? And am I working towards that? Is it something that would be successful if I were to do so?
Well, that's really interesting to hear because I mean, it's kind of the other side of what we as consumers of this content see from you as the creator of this content. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So what challenges as a woman of color have you faced in this space that is now becoming more diverse, but I guess when you started out probably was not?
Yeah, it wasn't at all. And I mean, again, it's really interesting because I came from more traditional media.
Hmm.
So, especially TV. Back then, there was nobody, you didn't have a Mindy Kaling to look at, on mainstream TV. There was no Priyanka Chopra that was switching over from Bollywood to Hollywood. You didn't have any of that. So, the most I would probably see is the rare occasion of someone doing a guest spot on ER being Indian, or the reporter on CNN that was an analyst or something like that. So it was definitely unheard of. And it was
Right.
something that I don't think people thought was possible, back then for representation. The challenge is now, I think the challenges then were just nobody believing that there was a market for it, right? Even though you realize that our demographic and we take up so much, we not only make up such a huge part of our demographic, especially here in the US, but also spending power. I mean, all of it, it's there, and so I
Right.
think slowly that has become realized, which is great. And realized by brands. And then obviously, like the diversity and inclusion aspect of it, I think has been great. I think the most challenging thing watching, especially from like, I would say traditional media and old school mentality of South Asians to today,
Hmm.
is this whole concept around really embracing inclusion, And so I think and it's hard to break that mold,
Right.
but it's about like how in a time where it was very scarce to see people that look like you, there was only room for one. There was only room for one. It was that token, right? The thing about tokenism that we hear about a lot. There was room for one of us. So the competitiveness was very strong. To
Right.
me, and again, I think this comes with age and I think it comes with a lot of things, but like I think it comes with the security of knowing what you have to offer. And I think that's what I hope, like especially my daughter growing up, what I hope everybody, especially in the younger generation, sees, and we are seeing it, which I really love, is that it doesn't have to be a competitiveness that's like I have to be the one chosen over you. It's like, we can all share that. And it's in different ways, because the way I speak about something is never going to be the way you speak about it. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like authentically, and that's going to come off really authentic. The way I talk about a product for said brand is going to be very different than the person next to me, even if we're very aligned and similar. And yes, those situations come about where like, oh, we already have two brown girls. Do we really need a third? I don't know. And so, yes, that's going to happen. But I think with that in mind, I think you have to remember there's going to be space. More and more space is opening up. More and more room is opening up. More and more we're seeing people that look like us. So it's going to be more of the norm to have more than just one person there. You know what I mean? And so I think,
Yeah.
again, with that too, is is not so much, the challenge is not, how do we make room for more of us? It's like, how do we, as collectively, make more room for us, but individually, how do I separate myself from people that are growing in this space, right? And so that's the challenge. It's not like, okay, great, we're getting there. We're seeing the representation. Fantastic. It's small, but it's there. We're getting there. But now, if I want to be represented too, how do I get the brown woman who's over 40, that's a mother of three, to get noticed, right? Like, and those are the angles that you have to start thinking about. And that I think starts taking a life of its own, and then also starts becoming like your own personal brand, and how you differentiate yourself from other women who are otherwise kind of grouped together. So like I
Right.
all the time when I work with brands, I'm like, no, that's great. You should, here, like whenever I talk to brands, I'm always pitching myself in a very strategic way, where it's like, if I know it's a skincare line and they're trying to do something, I'm like, hey, well, guess what? My demographic is the one that has spending power. They're going to spend $100 if I say that this is something that's really great. They're the ones that have the ability to say, you know what, I can do that because I want to have younger looking skin, or I want this. Hey, you know what? I've had 3 kids. I know exactly what it means to have hormonal acne. You should give this to me because I'm the one who can speak on it authentically, right? And so I think there's different ways of positioning yourself that allow people to then say, we're looking at a larger group, but now I'm looking at just one person. So I think the challenge is very much like, is not it. The challenge used to be representation. And now the challenge is, within the representation, how do you become that unique individual voice?
Right. So we all have those like unique qualities or skill sets that separate us, but how do we, recognize that within ourselves and then help other people see that as well? That's really interesting to hear. So I know you're short on time, so I will pick the most important question. So I guess when you, let's see. So we've covered a lot, but I guess just to close it out, what last pointers or pieces of advice do you have for high school or college age students who are still trying to explore different career paths, or maybe even interested in this beauty/influencer/blogger space?
That's a great question again, too. And I feel like so unique to everybody's individual path and journey.
Right.
But I think the biggest piece of advice, and I say this a lot, and I feel like it can sometimes sound cliche, but it really is true. It's like, do not compare yourself to other people. Like don't hinder your own progress or your own ambitions because you're worried that the person, your cousin, or the person next to you who has the same everything is going to go off and go to med school, and like,
Right.
oh my gosh, I'm letting everyone down because we're in the same situation and I'm choosing to pursue something that's very unconventional. Do not compare yourself, and don't compare yourself if you think you want to do something and someone else gets it and you don't, because there is time and there will be room, and there will, especially if you work really hard at what you want. I truly do believe that there's everybody's time under the sun is going to happen. It's just, it comes at different times. So I would say, one hard rule, don't compare yourself to other people. And there's a quote that I read that I always tell my daughter, and I forgot what it was, but it was something about like, you can admire someone else's beauty without questioning your own. So it's that same
Right.
idea that you can apply to everything. You can admire someone else's strength. You can admire their intelligence without questioning your own. Don't think because they have it, you no longer can. You can too.
Mm-hmm.
It's now like, use that as fuel, use that as motivation to do what you want to do now. So that's number one. Number two, I would say, this is the hard part. And I think we're still seeing the transition. Like you have courses that teach social media, and you have courses that are showing like how you can be a content creator or in the space. But I really think, and look, there are so many things that you can do nowadays without having to go get a further education, but to me, like, that's still something really important. And I'm definitely
Right.
going to encourage my kids to like go to college and do everything. So I would say go with the intent of doing all the things that you need to master no matter what. Meaning, like, we all need to learn how to be a team player. We all need to learn what it's like to problem solve. All these things that are useful skills within classrooms. You're going to get that no matter what, right? And so you find and then along the way, and that's why we have the first 2 years of college to figure out what it is we want to do. You then
Right.
realize, like, I have a real passion in this. And then how can I use that passion to then make a career out of it? And so what I would say, this is when the hustle mode comes in. Like, if you're in college and let's say it's like, okay, your parents aren't going to allow you to do anything, or they're not going to fund your lifestyle unless you go to college, right?
Mhm.
Figure out a way how you can parlay your passions into something on as a side hustle. Like, the side hustle is a sure way to really explore your passions without giving everything else up. So like, start that blog, start that side business, start that Etsy shop, start the whatever it is that you want to do that really sees and shows if what your passion is can translate into a career. And then once
Right.
that happens, really, it's like, what's holding me back? If I
Mhm.
started that cupcake business and I started selling it on DMs, and people were ordering, and all of a sudden it became this huge business. All of a sudden, an investor wants to invest in this. It's like, then it shows that it has credibility and it has legs, and it's something that you can pursue outside of what you're doing. So I would always say, like, to me, the way to do that is like, if you're unsure and you're scared or intimidated, is like, start the side hustle and do
Right.
that. And yes, that's going to require more time and attention from you
Mhm.
as a student to like go to your classes, potentially, sacrifice a few late nights, things like that, but like, do it and get that in motion. I think about it and I equate that very similarly to motherhood. It's like, when I decided to have children, I very much decided, like, I have to now put them first. They are my number one priority. So if that means I can't do certain things, and if I have to say no to certain jobs, if I have to um, put, if they're sick, I have to put them first before my work. Like, those are things I have to do. Right. And so it's the
Right.
same thing. It's like, it's part of becoming an adult. And I think it's great because it actually shows us a lot about our character, and it teaches us a lot about like what it is that drives us and what we really want. So if it's there and it's in you to figure out what it is you want to do, get that side hustle going and start.
All right. Well, that's a lot of valuable advice, and I'm so thankful for it and for you to spend a half hour with me and share all your wisdom. So thank you so much. And it was so great having you on here. And you're really the big sister and mentor for so many people in this space. And I look up to you, my cousins, my friends. So
Oh,
it's so great to finally meet you and have you on here. So thank you so much.
oh my gosh, of course. And Meera, I have to say, when you emailed me, I was very impressed with how you emailed me. And like, I just love that you're doing what you're doing and you are doing your side hustle. This is it. Like, when you had emailed and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, like scheduling, it's like, that's great. Like, you are an exact example of exactly what I'm talking about, which is pursuing your passion and your dreams while doing what you should be doing and want to be doing, which is going to school, getting your degree and all that stuff. So kudos to you.
Thank you so much.